I found this old seat in a hedge when walking my dog around the field next to my house, and I'd seen it at one time, and I brought it back the other day because I thought I could make it into something. I couldn't look to see it being wasted and rotting into the ground, so I thought I have to save that. I think it's from a Morris Minor, so I cleaned it up and with a wire brush on the wheel, which gives a real nice finish to it and takes off all the dirt and grime. Nice back to metal, but not shiny metal, so not smooth to touch and good. It had a big rust patch where it was pretty much non-existent, so I searched through my scrap pile to find a piece of tube that was right fit, right diameter. Couldn't find anything that had the right wall thickness, but I found a piece of old trolley jack handle and bent it into shape. Did the job. I tried hammering by hand, but it wasn't quite working, as it's far too stiff, so I had to get the heat on it. First time I tried to heat it just wasn't hot enough, so I had to turn the torch back up and change the nozzle for a bigger size. It's made the job much easier, and meant that I could get a nice curve on the piece of rod to fit the curves of the chair. As always, I was going to gas weld it in. Looks like a nice period repair and fits for the aesthetic of the chair. So I cut out the old rusts, ready to place my new piece in, and cut it to fit. This is very similar to the sort of work I do out of college, fixing rust on cars and stuff like that. So I had the skills from that. And then, more grinding to fit. Wasn't quite fitting. You have to clean up the edges, otherwise you won't weld properly, and it will just pop and bang when welding, and that's not the sort of thing you want exploding in your face. So nice and clean makes the job much easier. I'll then gas it on. Sorry it's out of shot, but I didn't think about the camera at the time. And I use the floor to make it all level and in line. This works for me. And then I tacked it. Once tacked it, I go around completing the butt weld. And I wouldn't recommend welding in shorts, but I'm used to it by now. Afterwards, this is a really strong repair, and you wouldn't really know it was still there. It passed the hammer test, so that does the job for me. I thought I would get the chair to a usable state before trying to chop it up and modify it. I hadn't yet thought what I was actually going to do with it, other than trying to store it back to a nice seat frame. And then I was going to think from that point onwards what I'd do with the actual chair. So these were someone in the past had repaired this, and it just rusted, and it part of the reason why the chair had corroded so much. So I went back and put some plates on. I later realised later in the video that the chair was completely wrong, and I ended up cutting this out. But this is just an example of some gas welding where you can see the seam being made. It's not like MIG at all. It leaves a quite organic weld to it, and I think it blends in nicely when you wire brush it back. It gives a nice finish, and I don't tend to grind my welds if it's gassed, because I feel like it adds to the material. Whereas if it was MIG, it would sit on top more, and I'd have to grind it back. Whilst I was at it, I was filling some holes, preheating the rod and then just dabbing on. So then I realised that the chair was far too big as a little deck chair sort of thing. So I worked it out by the back of the chair was almost up over the top of my head when I sat down in it. So I set about cutting about and taking about 10 centimetres out of it. I wanted it to rest just below my shoulders, and I could comfortably do this. So I took that amount out, and conveniently that got rid of a lot of the rust for me. So I didn't need to weld those patches on over the top. This sort of changes the aesthetic of the chair, but I suppose it makes it more of my own. I like it. It looks a bit more shorter, but yeah, no, it's nice. I had to kick the legs over so they were parallel, because by this point I knew I was going to make a rocking chair. And this is just testing where the point of balance was. I ripped up a piece of plywood I had where I was going to laminate the wood together. I like how when you laminate plywood together you just get loads of continuous lines, and especially if you chamfer the edge you can see it's just all kinds of different lines everywhere. So I went ahead and scored up the joints and glued them all together. I did 2 at a time, which stops the pieces of wood drifting apart from each other, and meant that I could get them relatively parallel without too much sanding. This wood glue sets in about 20 minutes, so I left it to set for a bit and then went back and glued the next one. I worked out how much thickness I needed by the amount of rock I wanted, so I found the centre point and worked back the angle I wanted just by eyeballing it with the chair and clamping it to the chair. So this is me cutting the bit of piece of rock for the chair. I didn't want a smooth continuous motion. I kind of wanted 2 stages of rock. So I did that, and then found there wasn't quite enough, so I went back and did it again, and that led me to a nice angle. I belt sanded all the edges to make them all square and true. It's just the easiest way to do this with the big belt sander, and it gives you a really, really nice finish. I did this on all surfaces and on both legs.